Python program runs across multiple, across different platforms like Windows, Linux, and Macintosh, etc. It has a rich set of use import those libraries, and we can just use those libraries. We can just use those libraries using the import statement, and we can access the methods that we want, and we can pass the arguments and get the work done. And coming to the extensive ecosystem, which means you can define your Python. You need not specify the type. Based on the value, the type will be automatically defined at runtime. So that way, it is a dynamically typed programming language. And coming to the indentation based syntax, here, if at all you want to define in C and Java, you will use curly braces to define the block. And you will write some set of lines inside the curly braces that becomes a block. So here in Python, we are not going to use these curly braces and all. The block itself is going to be defined with space itself. It is defined with a space. So space is used to define the block. Space is used to define the block. So I'll let you know how this indentation works further. And coming to the variable. In general, what is variable? Variable is a name given to a value that is stored in the computer memory. For example, here the value 6 is going to be stored in the variable x. So for the value 6, I am giving the name x. This value 6 will be stored in the computer memory. So the variable is nothing but it is the name given to a value. The value here is 6 and the name given to it is x. And this value will be stored in the computer memory. Then how to create the variable? The moment when you assign some value to a variable, variable is going to be created. This is how a variable can be created in Python. Similarly, when you assign some value to a variable, variable will be created. You can also assign multiple values to multiple variables at a time. For example, look at this statement. Here we have 3 variables. All 3 variables are assigned 3 values at a time. This 10 will be assigned to x, this 20 will be assigned to y, and this 30 will be assigned to z. At a time, you can assign multiple values to multiple variables. So, if at all you need any practical knowledge on these variables and then assigning multiple values and then global variables, I will just spend few minutes on that and then come back to the next slide. So this is the Python environment. We have a number of alternatives to run the Python. Whenever you install Python, Python can be executed in different ways. We can use Python IDE. You can use Python IDE. You can just directly download it from the internet, and you can even use Anaconda Navigator. This is the Anaconda Navigator, which includes number of frameworks. One of the framework that is present in that is the Spider. So this is the Spider. This is the Spider environment where we can type our Python program and we can see the output. And if at all you want to go with another environment, so directly you can go to the Google, and there you can type download Python download for Windows, and you will be directed to this website. And here you can see this download Python link. And for your Windows, if your operating system is Windows, you can click over here. If your operating system is Linux, you can click over here. If your operating system is Macintosh, you can click over here and then click on Windows. Then you select whichever the version you want. You select whichever the version you want. Directly you can click on this and then download it. It takes 1 or 2 minutes, and then you can install it. Once you install it, you can just type here using Python, and the Python IDE will be displayed. Click on it and then type your program over there. So right now I have deleted that Python IDE since I'm using this Spider. So Spider is very convenient than that Python IDE. The reason is Spider supports number of libraries automatically. It provides number of libraries, number of modules and packages. We need not install them explicitly. If you go with Whereas if you go with the Python IDE, you have to install the number of modules on your own using the pip tool. So it is always better to go with Spider since it provides all the built-in modules. Now, how to, the question is how to declare, we need not specify any data type. Based on the value, what is this value?
Integer.
Integer. Based on this value, the type will be determined at the runtime. If you want to know the type of that variable, simply type n. So it gives you the type of the variable in. Similarly, I will take one more variable. M is equal to 12.3. Okay, print the value of M is equal to comma M I'm typing, and then just display the value of M is going to be displayed. I want to know what is the type of this M. What is the type of M?
Float.
So if you want to know that, you can use the method type, and inside the parenthesis you can use M and press enter. It gives you the type float. That way, Python is dynamically typed language. Python is a dynamically typed language, which means based on the value, the type of the variable is determined at runtime. So Python is dynamically typed language. Now, it also allows us to declare, for example, A, B, C here, something like this. For A, I am writing Python. For B, I am assigning 10, and for C, 12.34. Here, if you observe, three values are assigned to three variables at a time. And if you want to print the value of A, the value of A is comma A. Just you can see the value being printed is Python. And if you want to print the value of print, the value of C is comma C if you type, so the value of C will be printed, which means we can assign multiple values to multiple variables at a time. And at this time, I would like to tell one more important concept called swapping. What is meant by swapping? For example, x comma y is equal to 10 comma 20. If I swap, initially the value of x will be 10, y will be 20. If I swap, x contains 20, y contains 10. How can we do that? So you can also do the same thing like this, x comma y. Initially, you can assign multiple values to the multiple variables like this. Later, you just type x comma y is equal to y comma x. And later, if you print the value of x is equal to comma x if you type, can you tell what will be the value of x now? And can you tell what will be the value of y now? But initially, what is the value of x? 10. What is the value of y? 20. But later on, using this statement, values are swapped and x takes 20, y takes 10. So swapping is very, very simple in Python. If you want to do the same thing in C language, if you remember, we have to take some temporary variable. First assign the x to temporary variable, then use x is equal to y, and then later y is equal to t. And this kind of setup we have to perform in case of swapping. You have to define one method like swap, and then write all these statements inside. At the end, values are going to be swapped. So in Python, In Python, you need not write all these things. The swapping is very, very simple because of this multiple assignment. Now I will go for the, for example, global variable. Sometimes you have defined a function. This is one function. Okay, this is one function, and you want to use the value x is equal to already defined is 10, and you want to use the same value over here. Okay, you want to use same value over here, and then print x is equal to 10, x is equal to x. So if you just type and then call the function fun, it prints the value 10 over here. So if you want to refer this variable inside the function, you have to use the keyword global. So if you use the global keyword before the variable name, it becomes global variable. And once you, if you do not mention this as global variable, for example, if I'm not using the keyword global here, if I'm not using the global here, and trying to, I will assign some 10 here or else 20 here, and if I try to print the value of it, I will see 20, and later if I print some value over here, x is equal to comma x, for this statement it will print 10, for this statement it will print 10, and for this statement it will print 20. Just verify. So first, for this statement it is printing 20, for this statement it is printing 10. The reason is, inside the function you have taken one variable, and this becomes local variable. Local variable will be always considered first than the global variable. When it comes to here, this is the main function, this is the main function. Once the function call is ended, the scope of this variable will be vanished. The scope of this variable will be vanished, and then the scope of the global variable will be available, and hence it takes the value x. So this is the how we can refer. If at all you want to refer the same global variable, you just keep something like this, and then if at all you want to change any value here, x is equal to 30, if at all you want to change any value, somewhere some mistake has happened. Global, global. Okay, so here I can even x is equal to 30 I can write, and later I can see initially what is the value of x. Initially what is the value of x? Here it will be 10. Since I am referring the global variable, inside the function the global variable is changed. The changed value will be now available over here. It becomes 30. It becomes 30. So that way, if you use global before the variable name, then it refers always the global variable. The change that you do inside the function will also reflect the original value or the global value. That global value will be available for the next statement. So that is how we can understand about the variables, global variables, and then assigning multiple values to the variables and so on. Coming to the next one, and built-in data types present in the Python. So these are the built-in data types present in the Python. These are the built-in data types present in the Python. So we have numerical data types, strings, and then Boolean. So if you look at the numerical data types again, in Python, the numerical data types contain integers, floating point numbers, and then complex numbers. So the strings that you write inside the double quotes or single quotes, it is called a string. It is a sequence of characters written either inside the single quotes or double quotes. And coming to the numerical, we have three numerical types here. One is integer, another one is floating point number, and the third one is complex number of the form a plus bi format. Boolean type, these types of variables can have either false or true. For example, a is equal to true or false. So if we want to know the type of the variable, we can use type function, which I have already shown you. Control statements. So we know that what is the use of the control flow statements. Say our program may contain number of lines. The program execution is being controlled by the control flow statements. The control statements are used to regulate, they are used to regulate the flow of execution of the program. Which statement has to execute first, then which statement need to be executed later, and so on. So these are controlled by the control flow statements. These are controlled by control flow statements. So under the control flow statements, we have three different control statements. One is selection statements, another one is loop statements, and third one is a jump statement. So under the selection statements, they're also called conditional statements, and then branching statements. Loop statements, they're also called iterative statements, and then jump statements are also called unconditional branching statements. Under the selection statements in Python, we have if elif, and then else statements. Under the loop statements, we have for and then while. Under the jump statements, we have break, continue, and pause. So here I will spend a little time on the control flow statements. Again, I will go back to the programs and let you know how they work. For example, so under the control flow statements, we have three different types. One is the selection statement, another one is loop, and the third one is jump. So why we use selection statements? Selection statements are used to select one option among the many alternatives. For example, you have in Python, if at all you want to read a number from the keyboard, we use input statement. There is a there is a function called input, enter n, and then this enter n will be displayed on the screen, and by the time you enter any number, that will be stored by default into string format, by default into string. But if you want to convert that into integer, you can use int function over here. So we use this input function. It is quite similar to the scanf statements in C language, or the next int or next function in the Java using the scanner statement. So to read the input from the user, we use input function, and then whatever you enter, that will be stored in the by default string format. But if you want that in the form of integer, you can use int function here, convert that into integer, and that will be stored in the variable n. Now I just want to test whether this n is even or odd. So you can just divide it by 2. If the remainder is equal to 0, you can say this is called f string. You can say n. Okay, n is even. Otherwise, print n is odd. So this way you can write. Okay, just compile it. It goes to this section. So that way, the selection statements it is used to select multiple. It is used to select only one statement among multiple statements, or only one choice among multiple choice. So at the same time, I will let you know one more example. Just look at this example. So we would like to test whether based on the score of the student, which grade he or she has got. So initially grade is empty, and now we are taking the score from the user. We are asking the user to enter the score here. So once the score is entered, that is going to be converted into integer, or you can, even if you want to convert that into float, you can type here float here. Nothing wrong in it. And that is going to be compared over here. It is passed to the function grade. This function is already defined here, and the score is going to be given as input argument here, and that score is going to be tested against this condition. If the score is greater than the 90 and less than or equal to 100, then it is A grade. If the score is greater than 80, which means 80 is less than score and score is less than 90, it is B grade. So that way, else its grade is F, and then we are going here based on the condition. If the condition is true, this portion will be executed, and then the control immediately comes to the last statement. Otherwise, if the condition is false, then control goes to the statement, and if it is true, it will be executed, and control skips the remaining. All these statements are skipped, control will be given to this statement. So that way, the control statements are used to regulate the flow of execution. They are used to regulate the flow of execution of the program. Control statements are used to regulate the flow of execution of the program. So this is how the program execution is controlled by the if statement. So under the if we elif, and at the end else. If above all the statements are wrong, at the end else will be executed. Sometimes you may interested with only one case. That is also possible. Then you can skip the remaining else, elif or else cases. So that way, selection statements are used here. This if selection statements are used to select only one among multiple.
వెనుక వెనుక నీ పేరు రావట్లేదు వెనుక నీ పేరు రాలేదండి
I am facing some disturbance, madam. Hello.
కావ్య అండి మా కావ్యాలు అయ్యింది
Hello. 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 So control statements are used to regulate the flow of execution, and we have I have explained this if statement, if else, and then if elif also with this example grade program. I have shown this example also. And coming to if, sometimes you can write an if statement inside another if statement. If the condition is true, then this will be executed. Then if it is true, then this will be executed. Otherwise, it comes out of the, it comes, otherwise it comes out of the loop, and then control will be given to this. So that way, it is sometimes required to write an if statement inside another if statement. An if statement inside another if statement. So if you do so, it is called nested if statements. So here I have given a small program to test whether the given year is leap year. So here, if the year needs to be leap year, it must be first divisible by 4. Every leap year is divisible by 4, and it must be divisible by 100, and it must be also divisible by 400. Then you can say it is leap year. Otherwise, if it is divisible by 100, else it is false. If it is divisible by 100, for example 2000, then you can say it is also leap year. Otherwise, false you can say. So this is how you can use nested if statements. Coming to the loop statements. So I will explain these loop statements with an example program. So in Python, we have two loop statements. One is for, another one is while. I'll let you know the syntax also, how we'll write the for loop and while loop. Mainly, the loops are used, you know very well why loops are used. The loops are used to repeatedly execute some block of statements. For example, I want to display something. Print Python. Python program. If I want to print this 10 times, what I can do? I can keep on copy and then paste it. At least for 6 times, if I want to print it, I can print the same thing here for 6 times just by doing it so. The same thing and just repeat it. So if you want to repeat the same thing there, you can use loops. So here same thing you want to repeat for more many number of times. In such a case, you can use loops. One of the loop that we can do with this is for loop. The syntax of the for loop will be like this: in, for in, and then here you can write range, how many number of times you want, 6 times. Then whatever the statement that you want to repeat those many number of times, just put that inside the loop and run it. The same output you can see here, same output. I'm just clearing, you can see the same output. You can see the same output. See, I'm just running it. Here I have written only one line. The same line is going to be executed for these many number of lines. So the loops are used to repeatedly execute a block of statement. Here I have written only one block of statement, one statement in the block. High level Python programming is a high level language. These 2 statements I want to execute for 6 times. So these 2 statements, which means what? This is the body, or this is the block, BLOCK block. What is meant by block? Anybody can answer? What is meant by block? Block is a sequence of statements that are to be executed. It's called a block. In C language, block is defined with curly braces, something like this. We will define the block like this, but in Python, we do not use any curly braces. Say all the lines, this is one block. Say all these lines must have the same indentation. The space before this line, must be equal to the space before this line. So the block is defined with the space only. If I keep this line one space like this, then it will raise an error. If I keep this one like this, then no error will be raised. All the statements must have the same spacing. If at all it is a block, all the lines must have the same space. So this is how block is defined in Python, and it is different than in C and then Java languages. And this is how we can use for loop. The same thing you can also, for example, if you want, you have a list of elements. L is equal to, you have a list of elements. The list contains something like this: 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on. Now I want to perform the sum of all these elements. To do that, I can use X in L. I can write where L is the sequence here, and now you can write total is equal to, initially I can take one more variable, total, initially set to 0, total plus X I can write. So for the first time, this X takes the first value 10, and that will be added to the total. Initially total is 0. It becomes what now? It becomes 10. Now next X takes the value 20, and that 20 will be added to the total, which is already 10 plus 20. It becomes 30. So 30 will be there in the total. Once this X takes the last value, then the loop is going to be terminated. So at the end, you can use print statement here to print the total. So we can see the total is something. So here the loop is used to repeatedly execute a statement or block of statement until some condition is satisfied. What is the condition here? Until it reaches to the last element. So that way we can use this loop. Similarly, we can do the same thing with while loop also. Instead of for, we can write while, and here I less than, how many number of elements are here? Len of L. Okay, and then you can just take the plus L of I, and then I is equal to I plus 1. See, what is the initial value of I? I is equal to initially 0, total is equal to 0. Now I is less than len. You may get some doubt, what is len? Len is used to get the size of the list. You type len, it gives you 5. So I is less than 5. Initially total is equal to total plus L of I, means if you type here L of I, it gives or block of statement.